It's my pleasure to welcome you all. Thank you all for signing in today. I will ask Laurie to say a few words on the project first, and then I will introduce the speakers.
So welcome to all of you that are here for the first time, and those of you who are here for more than the first time. Thank you for coming back. It's wonderful to see your faces. So thank you, Gamila, for introducing in a second both of our panelists it's wonderful to have you both here. So this is a grant that we applied for in March of this year when the U.S. State Department sent out a call for exchange alumni to submit projects to respond rapidly during the crisis, the pandemic, the public health crisis, and specifically around resilience. So Gamila and I, having both been Fulbrighters, more months actually, and worked together a number of years, wrote up a proposal that is similar to work we've done since we've known each other. And it's around looking at how family systems ideas are relevant to support, especially in low and middle income countries, communities who are trying to tap into resilience and maintain some kind of a psychosocial steady state, but focusing on the family rather than just the individual. So we're really pleased to have all of you here. The project goal for us is to focus on communities' response to the pandemic. I hear a lot of. I hope it's not my feedback, so apologies if it's me. I'll mute myself when I'm finished. Our project will go until March of next year. We plan to have 15 panels, and we will meet again in 2 Sundays on November the 15th. So I will mute my mic and pass it to Gamila to share about our panelists. You are muted. You are muted, Gamila.
Sorry, now it's my turn to. So thank you, Laurie, for the presentation of the project. I'll say just a few words on Niranjala Somasundaram and Dr. Ana Iosipan. So Niranjala Somasundaram will be our first speaker today. Is the Quality and Learning Manager at Family Rehabilitation Center, an organization that works with survivors of systemic and structural violence-related trauma. It's based in Colombo, Sri Lanka. She works on a daily basis in 3 languages, English, Tamil, and Sinhala. And Niranjala has extensive experience in monitoring and evaluation of psychosocial programs, specifically on data management systems, comprehensive data analysis, and developing many tools and designing psychosocial programs. I will let her introduce herself further if she wants to before the presentation. Dr. Ana Iosipan has a PhD in psychology with a specialization in behavioral health. She has worked in a private practice setting for 14 years in the United States and 19 years in Guatemala. LMFT licensed marriage and family therapist and licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. Dr. Ana Banana is currently working on obtaining her license as a clinical psychologist in Guatemala. She's fluent in English and Spanish. She has extensive experience providing e-therapy for multicultural issues, immigration, biopsychosocial and mental health evaluations. I will stop here in the introduction. The full bios will be uploaded on the website if you are interested in knowing more about our presenters. I will now invite Niranjala Somasundaram to make a presentation. You have approximately 10 to 15 minutes each, and then the floor will be open for comments and questions. Over to you, Niranjala.
Yeah. Thank you, Gamila. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. Hi, everyone. Greetings from Sri Lanka. So before I talk about the work that I do and the psychosocial services in Sri Lanka in generally, that I'll briefly give an update about the country context. So I think most of all you are aware that Sri Lanka is a beautiful country, and the total population is around 21.6 million, with a mix of different ethnicities and religions. And Sri Lankans have high life expectancy and literacy rate as well. But there are a lot of positive things, but also for the past few decades, Sri Lanka has lived through incidences and tragedies. For example, 30 years of civil war, radical riots, natural disaster, and last year Easter Sunday terror attacks, and now the COVID-19 pandemic. Not only Sri Lanka, but it's a global health challenge. So due to these incidents, thousands of lives were lost as a result of these. And still these incidents are leading to severe psychological and physical injuries. So the organization that I work for, the Family Rehabilitation Center, is working with survivors of systemic and structural violence related trauma for past 28 years in Sri Lanka. So the organization have served more than 35,000 individuals and provided direct psychosocial support services. And FRC's holistic approach basically includes counseling. When it comes to counseling, it's individual and group counseling. And also we do provide medical and physiotherapy services, awareness raising, capacity building of relevant stakeholders, and other support services through referrals and networking. And also, as an integral part of our services, we provide livelihood support services for the clients who have completed the services at FRC. The FRC's working approach during conflict. The counseling sessions were planned in a systemic and structural, according to a systemic and structural framework, but due to displacements, resettlements, and other practical issues during the conflict, there were no continuous sessions were provided to people. It's more than counseling sessions, it's more medical and physiotherapy sessions were provided. But during post-war context, so we were able to establish as an organization to provide counseling support services in a systematic and structural approach. And along with that line, we were expanding our services to gender-based violence. And approximately now, if you look at our current data, approximately per client, we normally provide more than 9 sessions. So if you look at the post-conflict context and the clients that we see normally, so most of the clients, 90% of clients are females, and nearly 33% of our clients are survivors of gender-based violence. That's the larger portion of our clientele. And it's quite interesting to see that 0.8% of male survivors of GBV also reported during the post-conflict context. And also most of the clients are falling under the age between 33 to 55 age group, nearly 56%. So these are the people who are accessing our services from the centers. And also, our analysis shows for the past 9 years, nearly 66% of our total clients have faced multiple traumatic incidences during their lifetime. So this could be due to war or gender-biased violence, or due to both. It can be particularly in these areas. So, and top of everything, now almost everybody has fear and anxiety over COVID-19. It's very important to highlight our organization's psychosocial workers who are providing counseling services to the needy population, people, handle this type of complex cases. Multiple traumatic incidences, and also the ongoing pandemic issues. So it's really difficult to handle this type of complex cases. The psychosocial workers also have challenges, their own challenges. So if if Family Rehabilitation Center believes that, and also the approach, the proper support system with regard to the clinical supervision and peer support model actually plays an important role in the MHPSS sector. So FRC, the Family Rehabilitation Center, actually practicing and has a model of clinical supervision and peer support system in place, which is really helpful for the psychosocial workers to support the beneficiaries or the clients in a quality manner. And also it's important that trainings, ongoing trainings for the psychosocial workers, and also not only for the psychosocial workers, and also for the field officers and the other support staff who got involved with the process are important. So the ongoing training programs are making a huge impact on the program. And also it's important, coming from a Mani background, it's important that putting Mani systems in place to track and see the progress and the change it's also an important element. So due to the pandemic, Sri Lanka went for a lockdown in March. And now actually, if you look at the situation now, we are actually struggling with a new cluster of COVID-19. So in March, so the FRC's approach was shifted from direct support services to remote psychosocial support services. So this is the first time in the history we supported our clients through phone-based services. Basically, we were very concerned because, as I mentioned already, most of the clients, nearly 33% of our clients, are survivors of gender-based violence. So when you make check-in calls, so we have to make sure that you are not putting your client in further risk. So we were very concerned when we were developing this model. There were series of meetings, consultation process took place, and then based on the discussions that we had with experts, we designed the program, and we provided psychosocial support services through on phone basis. And also through the intervention, FRC observed two aspects. One aspect is we could see increase in resilience among families and communities during the pandemic. And also the second aspect that I would elaborate as breakdown of resilience among communities and families. So there are certain factors from our analysis that we found out. Certain factors contributed to increased resilience. For example, better communication, responsive relationship, attention and care from family members and friends, networking and social connection, community level support systems, government response, all these factors contributed to increased resilience. At the same time, there are certain factors contributed on breakdown of resilience among families and communities. For example, mistrust, miscommunication, and lack of accessibility of services, worrying about loved ones, fear, distress, and anxiety over COVID-19, financial issues, and also increase in domestic violence and child abuse. So these are some of the factors contributed on breakdown of resilience. So these are the observations that we made by providing the services during the pandemic. And also from FRC's point of view, to increase resilience and to promote family and community well-being at any emergency situation, I feel like it's important to focus on these two aspects and factors, the contributed factors. It's important to analyze and see. And also a good networking system should be established and maintained. So we always, when it comes to service provision, we always make sure the networking system is established. There's coordination, there's a lot of meetings, information is shared, and a lot of materials are developed. But when something is over, an emergency situation is get bit better, then we forget about sometimes in global level, national level, like in community level, sometimes we forget about this networking system. We don't maintain. So during the pandemic, this is something we actually identified, that it's important to maintain the networking and then the relationship, not only with the relevant stakeholders, but also with the government, international bodies, private sectors, NGOs, academic institutions, community-based organization, the leaders, especially religious leaders, role models, so anyone. And specifically, there are certain things we, as an organization, we decided during the pandemic, even now it can be applicable, because with the current situation, we might go for another, if you look, another remote psychosocial intervention. So when you take our current ongoing clients, nearly 40% of clients are not willing to access our services due to the fear and anxiety and the issues with regard to transportation and everything. So we might move into the remote psychosocial support services for those clients who are not accessing our services. And also, it was noticed that the support system for people like us, the mental health professionals, clinical people, and many monitoring and evaluation related staff. So everybody need a support system, which is, I feel, which is again lacking. There's no common space for us to discuss about our own fear, anxiety, distress. So it's important to have this common space, and also it's important to create materials available in 3 languages, in local languages for any country. I think these are the basic observations during the pandemic that we observed, and we hope that if the situation remains, we actually don't know how the situation will be, and then it's important to sort of analyze the situation properly, and then plan accordingly. And also, it's something that we have been noticing, and it's something that I always notice, and I always tell people that resource utilization, it's something that we need to seriously think about during an emergency, not even during an emergency, but also in the common general sphere, that we actually need to think about utilization of resources. This is applicable for governments, international bodies, private sectors, NGOs, academic institutions, community-based organization, and each and every citizen in the world, especially leaders, role models, celebrities, everyone. Because sometimes from the ground level that we hear that sometimes we provide the same, so few organizations provide the same services for the same people. So it's important that we get together, plan properly, and then coordinate and discuss, and then utilize our resources properly. So yeah, so from my end, so this is what I actually wanted to present to you all. Yes, if you all have any questions, you can ask.
Thank you very much, Niranjala. Shall we wait till after the second presentation and then open it for floor for discussion? Thank you very much.
Okay.
I will invite Dr. Iosipan to make a presentation. There is some noise in the back. Do you hear it, all of you?
I can hear, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Thank you. Please. The floor is yours.
Okay. So I'm going to start, to share with you a little bit of a brief summary of the impact of COVID-19 in Guatemala. So before this crisis began, over 59.3% of Guatemalans were living in poverty. So can you imagine now, with the impact of COVID-19, more people have lost their jobs and their source of income. So the Guatemalan government's economic response was first to provide food baskets, to build new hospitals, and to give a bonus to the families in need, especially the Mayan communities. So this country, basically relies heavily on tourism. And unfortunately, when the COVID began, the majority of tourists left. And even people who used to live here in some areas of Guatemala, like Tikal, Quetzaltenango, Panajachel, which are basically Mayan countries, they left to their own countries. So tourism is expected not to return to the country until 2020-21 or even later. So the government, the president, gave approximately like 200,000 food baskets to the Mayans. And this plan was called Kids Saldremos Adelante, which means kids, we will come forward. However, for the information that I searched, not a lot of people were able to receive the baskets. So what they are doing here is the communities, the Mayan Quiches communities, they are gathering together, and they use basically their churches, to get medicines, food, masks, all they need, to prevent being infected with the COVID. Also, the government created a plan offering families a financial bonus of 1,000 quetzales, and that is equals to $130 for 3 months in a row, Unfortunately, not all people also have received that kind of bonus because this bonus is based on the monthly electricity bill. And if the bill is under 1,000 quetzales, people, can receive this kind of bonus. So there are some people kind of like investigating or trying to make sure that the people really need are receiving the money. So in addition to food baskets and bonuses, Guatemalan government has also focused on creating new hospitals. By the time, our president, which is an MP, is a doctor, he received the country in chaos. The healthcare system was extremely bad. So they began to build some hospitals, but still, they have been enough. A lot of doctors, nurses, have been infected with COVID. Some are dying. So we are in bad shape here in Guatemala. The government, created also a system to kind of like monitor the areas of more contamination. And they use kind of like the light system. Like if it's red, it's extremely bad. If it's yellow, it's in between. If it's green, it's okay. So, but unfortunately, most of the places here now are in red. Poverty, it's now 73.5% of Guatemalans. They have lost their job. Unfortunately, a lot of work in informal sectors. And as I said, at least in this area that I live, which is Mayan, basically, the source of income is more about tourism. We don't have tourists right now. So poverty is terrible. So one of very unique phenomenon that we began to observe, not only in the capital, in the city, but also in rural areas, was that people began to put white flags, outside their houses, or people were on the streets with a white flag, which that means that they were struggling financially and they were asking for help. That is still going on. And people, what they're trying to do is like doing donations. The medium high class, some people, they have organized like connecting money to help all of these people with food, with masks, and basically with food, because there are a lot of people that they don't even have, they live day by day. The good thing is that we have a lot of non-profit organizations, and they have also helped bringing, all what these people need, and they start, collecting all of these resources at the church or at the municipal salons that they have in each town. What is terrible and sad is that at least outside the city, the schools have closed. Children, now you can see now more children working on the streets to help the family, to bring some money for food. And I don't know if they're going to be reopened, the schools probably till next year. Right now, the scholar year is over. The scholar year begins in January and it's over by the middle of October. In the city, yes, they were able to continue medium high class through internet. Hear me?
Yes, but your video froze.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Hello. Okay. Oh.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think we lost communication for a moment. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
We're
yes,
here.
we can hear
Can you
you.
hear
We
me?
can hear you.
Okay.
We can
Okay. Okay, perfect. So at the current time, over half of the 17 municipalities in the departments of Guatemala are in red, as I said. So the measure, the protocol, that they were using here in Guatemala has been reinforced. So we still don't have a curfew as we used to have, but they don't allow more than 5 people to be in a place. Wearing mask is mandatory, and as today, as I was sharing before, the cemeteries were closed, so people were not allowed to go to, honor the dead ones, like it's a very custom here in Latin America. Another factor, in the rural and Mayan communities that they have to deal with was no transportation. So if they don't have transportation, no hope. So people were greatly affected, for when the buses, the normal buses, were not allowed to circulate. So people have to walk, and they began also to organize with some pickups, to bring at least 3 people, 5 people in the back of the pickups. So they were able to move and to transport their vegetables and the things that they needed to sell in the market. Markets were closed, so they struggled more because of that. So some of the people, began to organize themselves with the local stores, and the people who were selling the markets, they brought their fruits, their vegetables, and so on, and they asked permission. So they were helping each other, So they also have the chance to sell their products. Let's see what else. Another problem that we were dealing with was immigration. People that were deported from the United States, unfortunately, a lot of that were deported from the US came sick. So especially in the Mayan communities, they didn't allow them to get in, and they closed, the entrance. So people from outside their own communities weren't able to get in, even if they belong to that community, especially if they were coming from the United States. They became aggressive, even if the authorities, tried to come with the immigrants, to their hometown, they didn't allow them. That was one problem. The other problem was that when we opened the country, we had again the problem with the caravans from Honduras. People that trying to move to the United States, and as soon as they opened the borders here in Guatemala, they came like, I don't know, like a caravan, And a lot of were illegal. They didn't even have passport to cross the border of Guatemala. So they have to block that part, so people weren't able to move. And then, with everything, all of the stress that we were dealing with, in one little Mayan town here called San Marcos La Laguna, they have, due to the heavy rain that we have been dealing with, there was like a mudsliding. So like 8 houses were buried, some people died. A lot of houses are in danger, so they have to move. Now some of the churches around are helping these people, and they have to move them there like shelters. So they're still working on that. Now about, mental health, marriage and family therapy or psychology. I have, as a clinician, I have been experiencing, 2 worlds, Guatemalan clients and my Floridian clients, because I used to live in Florida and provided psychotherapy there. So here, for some of my colleagues, has been very difficult to make the transition, from in-person to online. While, for a lot of at least in my case, has been very easy since, I became a certified telemental health counselor 5 years ago. So even in the States, before moving back to Guatemala, I was providing counseling online and counseling in person. Some of the complaints here has been that they don't have the technology, the internet is bad, they are not used to, they feel kind of like anxious because they are not able to read the body language of the client. So, but, and, the limits. A lot of people, this is a poor country. They don't have access to internet or they don't have smartphones. So one of the main alternatives that they have been using is providing support, counseling and support by phone, WhatsApp, which is, free. And some people have access to that. Zoom for the middle class app, and Facebook rooms. Those are kind of like the platforms they are using to continue helping people. Some of the like in a lot of countries now, mental health issues that people are dealing with. First, here was the fear of the unknown. People were really afraid, and they began with anxiety, panic attacks, depression, alcoholism, which is really heavy in this country, especially in the Mayan communities, marijuana abuse, domestic violence, acute stress disorder, and of course, grief, because a lot of people, have lost someone due to the COVID. Some of at least the School of Psychology in Guatemala, they have provided a line for people to get counseling for free. And some of the universities also have opened their doors or volunteer psychologists, to provide counseling by phone or any other platform that people are able to have access. In my case, I'm promoting not only with some of the colleagues that I speak here, but also with my clients and colleagues that I talk in the United States, since, I use the postmodern approaches in family therapy, to help people to reinvent, to create, new conversations so they are not too focused in the stress. Instead of rejecting, to use paradoxical intention to embrace the chaos, and to start moving, to a more positive narrative and a more positive perspective about this COVID. Also, I'm working a lot since this is a family-oriented country. And they miss a lot to be connected with their own people and to have the physical touch, to create ways to soothe themselves by having more conversations by phone, having, face-to-face by phone conversations, nurturing, by finding activities that are going to help them to get rid of the stress. And it has been easy because, as I said, people are here more family oriented and they want to be together. Like, for example, today, they have the tradition to eat fiambre, which is a very typical food. And usually it takes like 3 days of preparation. Usually families do that together. And now, a lot of people weren't able to do that. Even the government, prohibited that families be 5 people together, to prevent more the infection, to be infected. So this is where we are now. And this is what we're dealing with. I did a PowerPoint where I would have loved to present to you, a little video on how people, the Mayan communities, are organizing here. I don't know if Lori will be able to show it to you when I finish my presentation.
You let me know, and I can do it.
The latest issue that we are dealing with is we are having robberies and children's kidnappings, violent crimes such as armed robbery and murder is very common. Gang activities such as extortion, violent street crime, and narcotics trafficking is widespread. Local police may lack the resources to respond effectively to these serious criminal incidents. And on top of that, there is now an alarm about kidnappings again. Some people are saying that prisoners, in jail here are the ones, that still have their organized crime organization. And they are the ones, that due to the fact that people, they don't pay for their vehicles, for the phone extortions that they used to have, what they are beginning to do are kidnapping children because they argue that people would pay for their children. So this is something that is now going on. So the media, has preventing their parents on that and to be very careful with the children because they are not only kidnapping them, for human trafficking, but they are also kidnapping them to sell organs or for prostitution. So this is where we are right now. You
I think we have lost Ana.
Yeah.
Ana, can you hear us?
I hear you right now. I don't know if you were able to listen to me because for a moment I observed that I lost communication.
Yes, you can. You can continue if you wish to now, because we can hear you.
Okay. I don't know where you stopped listening to me, but besides the problems with immigration, besides the problem with natural disasters, the last thing that we are dealing with right now is with kidnappings. They began to kidnap children, because this organized crime organization in jail, they notice that people are not paying no more for extortions or when they steal their vehicles. So what they began to do is to kidnap children because they said that, oh yes, parents will be able to pay for a ransom for a child. So, and sometimes, they don't even, they take the children for human traffic, for prostitution, or to sell organs. So this is the latest that we are dealing with. What I was asking is, because I have a little video, so you were able to see, it's a 2 minutes video on how people, the Mayan communities organized here and some of the nonprofit and volunteer people are helping people to survive the COVID-19. I don't know if Lori was able to, or is able to play that.
I can play it. Do you want me to play it? I posted the link, but I can play it. It's only 2
Yes,
minutes.
please.
Sure.
Yes, please.
Okay, so let me share my screen, and you can mute yourself, Anna. And I will just. Okay, I think I'm sharing. Yes. And this looks like it, right, Anna? Oh, sorry, I asked you a question. Question.
Tommy or Mose. We are on a trip to a village called Chumal, about 10 kilometers outside Chichicastenango, Guatemala. We arrived to our destination, a church, with 50 bags of food. Tommy lectures the locals about coronavirus, how to avoid being infected. He tells them how to wear masks properly, the importance of social distancing and washing hands. There's a lot of fear about the virus, about the lockdowns, and the uncertainty of the economy that has now left many people unemployed and without hope. As you can see, it's a small crowd. They only ask one person in their household to come receive the donation. The situation here in Guatemala is grim. So the United States is opening businesses, Guatemala is cracking down on domestic orders. Currently, on the weekends, no one is allowed to leave their homes, and public transport is still suspended. A service many villagers rely on in order to go buy and sell food. Tommy tells me this all started when his neighbors had asked him for some rice, and he shared with them from his personal stash. Once word got out, various missionaries wired cash donations, enabling him to purchase food in bulk quantities. Bags contain the basic staples: salt, oil, rice, corn, beans, sugar, oatmeal, soap, and detergent. Each bag costs roughly $10, and depending on the family size, may provide up to 2 weeks' worth of meals. These volunteers, consisting of community members and pastors, display some serious dedication, carrying hundreds of pounds of supplies down the steep ravine to the church of Chuaba. Tommy's team, once they get to the bottom, have to separate about 150 bags worth of supplies. And as you can see, there are no foreigners here. This is solely a Guatemalan organized and led operation. And after everything's laid out, the local pastor leads a prayer to bless the food. The service is not exclusive, since those who come do not necessarily have to be members of the church. The aid is available to anyone in need. And this guy on the bottom right is Tommy's father, who is the key liaison to the local churches in Chichicastenango. Tommy says that his crew of volunteers will continue visiting churches as long as there is funding to buy food. For many of the families, the food is a welcome gift, a drop of hope, and an act of brotherly love from the heart of Christ.
Thank you, Laurie. So
You're
this is
welcome.
the reality. This is still the reality. A lot of towns, Mayan, Quiches communities are living right now. So besides, as I said, that the middle class, high middle class to high class families have been trying to help with donations and so on, it still is, not enough to supply for everybody. But at least, people are very community oriented too, and they are doing their best. And as I said, psychologists, mental health, marriage and family therapists, are volunteering their time. I am one of those. As I did in the United States, I continue volunteering time, to help people with their mental health. So I don't know if you were able to listen everything, because I noticed that the communication went off for a moment, but you're welcome to ask questions. Now I think it's time for that, right, Laurie?
Yes.
Yes, thank you both Niranjala and Ana for your presentations. Now the floor is open for questions or comments. We have about another 5 to 10 minutes for questions and comments. I will just say that it was very interesting. I think it was the first webinar that focused on COVID-19. The other seminars we had earlier didn't really focus so specifically on the situation of COVID, and also on remote counseling, which you both mentioned, Niranjala and Ana. So I think it was, and both mentioned some of the challenges that you face in both countries, moving from in-person counseling to online counseling, right? Also, Ana, I think, also talked more about some of the other kinds of support that you provide, focusing on food and even economic related support, whereas Niranjala focused much more on the individual and group counseling that FRC provides. So now the floor is open for comments, questions.
So please feel free to ask your question, or we don't have a raised hand in I don't think, in WebEx. So you can just feel free to speak, open your mic and speak, or write it in the text if you want to.
Hi, this is Dorcas. I do have a question for Niranjala, if you can hear me.
Yes.
So you mentioned that a concern of providing remote psychotherapy was using phones. I was curious to know if you've been able to determine the impact that has had on the victim of violence who were just by phone and been able to stay safe. And also, is the law Angela, you're still muted. We can't hear
Yeah,
you.
so sorry. So thank you so much for that question. Very interesting question, actually. So the first thing, FRC has a model where we are very grassroots oriented. Our approach is where we go into the community and sort of identify the needy population or the clients, and then we provide office-based services. So we have a system called or support group called Community Volunteers and Grassroots Level Action within the community. So whenever we don't have access or we don't have connection with the particular client, the members who are representing the particular community are able to connect and support because they live in the same community, same village, they know each other. So we use community volunteers and grassroots level action committee members to sort of that gap. So sometimes, as you mentioned correctly, that some of our clients didn't have mobile phones to sort of engage with the service provision. So at that point, sometimes the community volunteers, they go and visit the client and they sort of support them. And sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, we were very concerned when we were designing the program, thinking that maybe the survivors of GBV, gender-based violence, maybe we are putting them in further risk. So the intervention was planned in a way. Yeah, actually, we didn't sort of do phone-based counseling or anything, but it just the script was created in a way just to check and just to make sure that, and just to show them that that we care as an organization, that we care for them, and just a connection, and also we're able to connect them with other service providers to get necessary support services. So that's how we sort of managed to mitigate the risk there. But as you mentioned, it was always a risk when you have, and also for the first time in the history when you to your services from direct psychosocial to mobile remote psychosocial. This is a challenge always that.
I'm just curious, before the next question comes, are you calling it remote psychosocial? What do you guys call it at FRC?
Remote psychosocial support services.
Remote psychosocial support. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the only one talking.
I would like to ask Anna, how do you have any policy? Do you hear me? Do you hear me? Yeah. Do you have any policy for making families feel safe with their children?
No,
you know, that's sad. Unfortunately, as in other countries, here a lot due to the lack of opportunity to study, to go to school. Unfortunately, parents, especially as I said again, in the Mayan communities, you know, when the child is around 10 years old, 12 years old, you know, they stop from going to school and they start working with them. Yeah. It's something that, you know, since I left my country for 20-something years and now I'm back, this is a reality, you know, that hasn't changed at all. Regardless, a lot of, you know, organizations helping the communities, very little changes, you know, have occurred, very little. Still, you know, with mental health issues, it's still a stigma uh, because people are very religious, so they rely more on their religious leaders, shamans, or there is a big percentage of Christians here on their pastors or their priests, but and they still see psychology or mental health counseling or marriage and family therapy, you know, as a taboo. So, but we're working on that. You're welcome.
Hi. Hi. I don't know if somebody's speaking before me.
I think Milana had a question. Is that right?
Actually, it was not a question. It was more of positive feedback. I don't know if we are giving priority to questions. I can wait my turn. But however, I want to send my warm regards to all of you, especially to this evening speakers who really, in a very illustrative, descriptive way, show to us their challenges they are currently experiencing. Because from perspective of still high income considered country as Seychelles are, I guess we are extremely lucky here to use the opportunity to promote all difficulties that we are otherwise having as a mental health worker through COVID-19 platforms. So we are basically incorporating all messages and all interventions that we are here to deliver through the more of promotion and prevention program that were lacking anyway here. So I see this as a, how would I say, great platform to get more ideas and to actually be grateful for all we are here to share. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So-
Roxana. Laurie, please go ahead.
I would just to say thank you for another very rich discussion and different. Again, we're still talking about resistance to resilience and resilience in spite of the challenges in this project. But every time we meet, it's slightly different. You know, like a prism. So I really appreciate the points that were brought from our two speakers, who are dear colleagues for many years, but yet it's like you're meeting you for the first time again. The brilliant things that you're sharing about what you're doing every day, and the ideas that it gives all of us, as Milana put it, to think about what to add as we all move through this. You know, this emergency together. So thank you. That's my way of thanking you, panelists, before we stop the recording. And Camila, would you like to add anything? And then I'll stop recording. I think you're muted again.
Sorry, I'd like to thank both panelists very much for your very interesting presentations. And as I said, this time it was very much focused on COVID and how individuals are being supported by your work. Both. I am happy that Niranjala was able to do a presentation. Niranjala and I have been working together, at least not really working together, but I have been involved in her organizations kind of indirectly for a very long time. So it's really a pleasure to have her today. I won't even mention that she was a student of mine some years ago, not to embarrass her, but that ought to embarrass myself, I don't know.
Anyway, put it on the recording, Camila.
Yes. But thank you very much, Anna, also for your presentation. I think both presentations really discuss the same issues that both countries are facing and the different types of support that we have worked on together. So thank you.